Yeah, so I took a ride with the singing cab driver. It was 3 or 4 years ago. I'm not sure exactly how long. I know it was a while back, but I remember pretty specifically. I'm a stand-up comedian, and I had just finished an open mic, and it was really late at night. I was far from home. I was pretty broke at the time, and I checked to see when the next bus was coming, and it was a half an hour, and it was starting to get fall. The weather was terrible. I couldn't even afford a cab, but I was like, I'm just gonna take a cab. Forget it. And so I waved it down. I remember it being a yellow, kind of one of those boxy SUV kind of feeling cabs. Maybe it was like a Toyota Scion. It felt like that, at least. And I remember it pulled up, and I remember actually a friend of mine decided to take the bus. And so he left. And so later when I told him, he was like, oh, damn it, I should have split a cab with you. And it pulls up. I get into the cab. I remember being really clean. And this guy, like, it didn't feel like a cab driver was picking me up. It almost felt like, I don't know, some guy your mom sends to pick you up, just like a regular American dude that's like really congenial. I got in, he was like, oh, how was your night going? And seemed to genuinely want to know how my night was. So I told him, and I'm just thinking, well, this is pretty cool. I'm probably going to get home quick. This guy sounds like he knows where he's going. I don't have to explain. And a couple minutes into the ride, he busts open with his spiel, and he's like, I'm the world famous singing cab driver. And he said some other things. I don't remember it all in detail, but he gave me the option to hear a song. And I was like, well, what the hell? I'm in this cab. Why not hear a song? Yeah, of course. I'm intrigued. And so he goes, cool. Do you want to hear a love song? Do you want to hear a song about sex? Do you want to hear a fight song? I don't remember everything, but I remember it was a menu of types of songs. And I was feeling a little bit boozy. I think I'd had a good stand-up set, so I'm feeling optimistic. And I was like, yeah, a love song. Let's hear that. And then he's got another menu.
Yeah, I had the singing cab driver once, and this is what happened. He picked me up. I was working at Second City, and he picked me up. I didn't expect it. We got in. I was there with another coworker, and he asked us. He said, "I'm the singing cab driver." That's what he said to us. Congratulations. He congratulated us on hopping into his cab, like we've won the lottery. It was cool. And so we get in, and I think I was going to Logan Square. I was living in Logan Square at the time, and he said, he gave us the categories, and we picked sex. Sex was the one, and so he sang about sex for the entire drive.
And then before he gets into his song, I think I was checking text messages or something on my phone, and he goes, well, if I'm going to take the time to sing this song for you, I ask that you're not on your phone, you're not looking at the internet or your text messages or anything, that you put your phone away and that you listen. And part of me was like, the hell you think you are? You're my damn cab driver. Just drive, Jeeves. But I also, though, was like, if he's got the brass, he's probably pretty good. So I put my phone away and I was like, all right, give me your song. And he did, and it was awesome. It was amazing. I can't remember the song, but I remember, like, you get this, like, when something really special happens, there's this kind of a goosebump or like a feeling, like, I don't know, like magic dust has been poured over you. And that's kind of what it felt like. I was like, this is kind of a happening. This isn't something that happens every day. This is amazing. And then we talked afterwards. We talked a little bit about his band. He gave me a flyer, and was just a really nice guy that sang a great song. And then I remember actually asking him, going, hey, has anybody ever done a documentary on you? And he goes, well, they've tried, and none of them have come through. And I was like, man, somebody should do one on you. And then I asked him, I was like, you got to give me your contact info. When I have family and friends in town, this is an awesome Chicago experience they've got to have. Can I call you? And he goes, and I'm sure I'm going to not say the words exactly, but I recall him going, I'm sorry, but I don't take appointments. When your karma is good and the stars have aligned, you shall see me again. And I was like, all right, you work for Santa? I don't know what's happening here. But it felt magical, like you ran into Santa. And so I got out, and I've never seen him again.
How's it going? Going well.
Good. We're
I'm
excited to
feeling,
be in your cab.
if not if not immortal, I at least feel pretty positive.
Right.
And where can I take you
We're
tonight?
going to the W in the city center.
All right. We out of towners?
We are out of town.
Yeah.
Where are we from?
We're from New York City.
Welcome to Chicago.
Thank you.
And don't get the idea that all cab drivers here sing, although a lot of them do, but even if they did, they don't sing as well as I do.
I've heard
And even if
several,
they
but they're out
did,
of key.
they don't sing originals. And even if they did, they wouldn't be as good as me. I am the singing cab driver. Did my friend tell you?
I heard.
Okay. Would you guys like to hear a song written by me in a
Yeah.
taxi? All right. Well, we always defer to the feminine sensibilities and make it ladies' choice.
Oh my
So here's what I write about: love, sex, social significance, or other.
Love.
What kind of love? I have sweet, sappy, sentimental, thinking persons, defiant, unrequited, non-committal, toxic, or family. Or most
Sappy.
recent. Sappy? It shall be. Now please, the fine print, as I like to say. The price of admission in my little show in this cab will be your full attention, okay?
Fair enough.
So all I ask is that while I'm singing, no devices, no phones, no texting, no recording, no photographing, no talking, of course, and no making out, and no making noises, except you may laugh, cry, gasp, or sigh. Those noises are quite acceptable. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
All right. So we want a sappy love song, huh? All right, here goes. How many nights can we go without sleep? How many nights can we go? Flesh is too wailing and the spirit's too weak. We don't know how to say no. Can't keep my mind or my hands off of you. And you don't mind where we do what we do. We sure do act like two people who just found a fresh love, new love. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Fresh love, new love. Do-do-do-do-do-do. Let's take it slow is what we said when we met. Let's take it slow is what we said. We should have known from that very first kiss that we'd soon end up in bed. Now we're addicted to this animal lust that so excites us whenever we touch. We get it on and can't get too much of that. Fresh love, new love. I got all the symptoms. Fresh love, new love. Can't sleep at night. Fresh love, new love. And I don't feel like eating. Fresh love, new love. My every breath's a sigh. You want to know how I can tell you I love you, and I hardly know you well. I know that I want to, and the way we are together, baby, it's plain to see that we're the kind of lovers others wish they could be. How long can we carry on like we do? How long can we carry on? Stumbling around half asleep all day through, up making love till the dawn. We're late for work again and don't seem to care. We're wearing silly grins, let people stare. You're Ginger Rogers and I'm Fred Astaire, and we got fresh love, new love. You make me feel like singing. Fresh love, new love. Diddle-doo-doo-doo-doo. Fresh love, new love. My heart is ring-a-dingin'. Fresh love, new love. Diddle-doo-doo-doo-doo. Fresh love, new love. La 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 la. Fresh love, new love.
Yay!
Thank you.
Do you write all your own songs?
Oh yeah. The singing cab driver exists for the purpose of writing songs as he drives, singing them to his passengers for their entertainment, hopefully some enlightenment, and the self-aggrandizing purpose of marketing the band Chameleon World. More than a band, it's a world, which exists for the purpose of performing these songs on stage to hopefully larger audiences than fit into the taxi. I do love people. I love Chicago. I love to drive, so they got that going for me. And I'm not shy, so, you know, I started singing to people, and I started realizing, like, this is my shtick. This is my destiny. I wasn't born to play Nathan Detroit and Guys and Dolls or sing old rock and roll standards in smoky bar rooms. I'm the singing cab driver. Who could forget the singing cab driver, right? And then over the years, it became its own thing. And then I slowly began to realize that when I started being the singing cab driver, I had achieved my goals in life. What are they? To never get a real job again, but instead to live the life that I would want to read a book or see a movie about. No, I started singing almost immediately because I just like was working on my first or second song, you know, and started singing it to passengers. This is the kind of music we're going to perform, and we like Talking Heads. We're going to do a lot of Talking Heads. If you like Talking Heads, you like Chameleon World. So I was like starting right off the bat, and then right off as soon as I started driving, almost immediately I started like just writing a song a week maybe. Sometimes there are many cab drivers in the world who sing, and some who sing quite well, but none other than me can claim to be that urban legendary 21st century city and eastern son of the singing cowboy movies, the mother effing Teresa of showbiz, that white Tom Jones. Yours truly, Ray, Saint Ray, the singing cab driver. All rights reserved. I mean, they could try, but you know, I got a pretty big head start on anybody who's gonna try and do this. And it's pretty firmly established that I am indeed the singing cab driver. Here's the other title song. I've been rich and I've been poor. Rich was way more fun. Poor was much too real. I wish that everyone in the world could feel somewhere in the middle. Not too much, not too little. Somewhere in the middle. Not the wrong side of enough. I've been obese and I have starved. Fat was way more jolly than sleeping in an alley and begging you for money to buy a cup of coffee or drugs to ease the pain. Trapped inside a game where everyone wants everything and someone else to blame. So I've gotten high and fallen down. High was too much fun, down far from ideal. I wish that everyone in the world could feel somewhere in the middle. Not too much, not too little. Somewhere in the middle. Not the wrong side of Why do they paint their mirrors and vote religiously for those who prey upon their fears, embarrassment, and greed? How can they let the men who steal the world control their needs? 'Cause the best behaved of all the slaves are the ones who think they're free. Somewhere in the middle, not the wrong side of enough. Somewhere in the middle, not too much, not too little. Somewhere in the middle, not the wrong side of enough. Not the wrong side of enough. Not the wrong side of enough.
Oh, okay.
That was my favorite one.
Thank you. We did say
middle
W
path.
City
Yes, sir.
Center, right? Okay,
It's right
good,
here.
good. Okay, well, here's my card. Souvenir of the trip, proof we have met. Refrigerator and magnet not included. And please send me an email so I can let you know when this album comes out. We're just working on the first song right now. And it's going to be awesome. It's about the theft of our future over the last 40 years by the men who steal the world.
Yep. I know them.
You
I
know
wish
them.
I knew 'em.
You know them.
I wish I knew them. I could box their ears.
And we're not in that group.
When I was really young, I don't think that I felt very close to him completely. I mean, I loved him, and he was my dad, of course. I loved him completely, but it wasn't until I got older, maybe 12, 13, where he felt like he could start telling me what to read and telling me what movies to see and showing me, you know, interesting artists or interesting music, that I think that he was more interested in me as a person. I don't think that, I mean, he's really fun and he has a lot of toys. Like, he has more toys than most children.
This is, I think, the most awesome vehicle movie prop ever. It's a fucking moon bus. That's where we're supposed to be by 2001. It's a moon bus. Things are so mundane. You're taking a bus on the moon, right? I like this fake piston effect here. not as cool as I thought it was going to be.
My dad's personality is loud. I think he does wear his personality like very literally, because his clothes are so flashy and colorful, and I think that's how he is too. And I think that he needs a lot of attention, and is good at getting it. He's very charming. He's very he's so easy to talk to for strangers. Like, he can make new friends very easily. He is very smart. He's one of the smartest people I've ever met.
Well, I feel very strongly that our future, and by ours I mean everybody's future, I feel very strongly that our future has been stolen from us over the last 40 years. There was this thing called the 1960s when I was a kid, and there was a promise of a pretty awesome future. There was great technical achievements in a short period of time, like we went to the moon in 8 years. A lot of the things that we think are very awesome right now are just inevitable improvements on things that were created back then, like the internet and fuel cells and things like that. It all came to, there was also a big push of social progress and a very flourishing of the arts, which people are still trying to cash in on today. And that all came to a grinding halt. The 60s ended right in the early 1970s, almost exactly 40 years ago. And we stopped going to the moon. We never went back in outer space in 40 years. Space shuttles aren't spaceships. They're just airplanes. They go to the top of the atmosphere. And now it's like 40 years later, and I'm happy that we're not fighting mutants in the radioactive ruins of World War III America. But on the other hand, we are far from returning from our second paid vacation on the moon, aren't we?
I think he fancies himself a little bit of like a life coach or a motivational speaker. I think that he feels like he has it licked a little bit, like life, like he knows what to do, and he wants to give that knowledge to other people. I think that he has, a dark side, like everybody. I think that he can be a little self-centered, which I think is probably just comes with the territory of being an entertainer. To have that sort of personality that wants to be on a stage and wants people to look at them, he needs to be the type of person who wants to be up on a stage and wants people to look at him. And, that doesn't really go away when he's off stage.
Sue just elixir, for better or for worse. Hey, Sue just elixir is good for when it hurts. Hey! Yeah, this hat is awesome. Now this is called a boater or a skimmer. And this is your standard skimmer. It's got like a 2.5 inch brim, I think, 2-inch brim. And it never quite looked right on my hat. I prefer a wider brimmed hat. But this is the most awesome. This is called a Colonial. Believe it or not, this is a Ralph Lauren polo hat. I have no idea when he came out with this. It might have been from the 80s for all I know, because I've bought it on eBay and I can find no history about it. And if you try and buy one of these retail, I don't think you can. You notice it's very high for a straw hat. Straw hats, modern hats, since World War II at least, I've been like shorter. And then this I found at a thrift store. Brooks Brothers, come on! I can't even find another one. I have tried to find another one just in case anything ever happens to this, because this hat is so awesome. It just floats on your head. And it looks great if you're drinking a Hawaiian punch. But sometimes you just want to sit on the veranda and watch the slaves work in the fields. No. Yeah, sometimes you just want to, go down to Harper's Ferry and shoot at John Brown, so you wear a hat like this. And I am the captain of my own destiny, so I need my own yachting hat. Something like Yeah, this kind of hat looks good if you're like going through the jungle with a Tommy gun. And that's pretty much my hat collection. I have a zillion other hats, but these are the good ones. Women want to sleep with me when I wear this hat.
What else?
You can understand why. Women want to suck my dick. Don't put that. Don't use that. You will, though. I know you will.
I think a symptom of being alone a lot is that you only have one person to talk to, which is yourself. So I think with my dad, he is alone a lot. You know, when you don't have a fare, you're driving around looking for one, and that's probably half of the time. And so I think, you know, his spiels, his menus, and his anecdotes are all rehearsed and tailored to be like perfect. Like, I'm sure he thinks of every single word and thinks about how he's gonna say exactly what he's gonna say, and the volume that he's gonna use, and the voice that he's gonna use. And you know, I mean, it's like writing a song. You know, you think about what you want in that song, but then he's putting that same sort of effort and thought into all of the other things that he says too. And the menus that he has placed all of his songs into are so, you could probably like shake him awake in the middle of the night, like, Ray, what are the songs? What kind of songs could you sing to me? And he would know. He would right away, like, oh, songs, love, sex, social significance, or other. And then if you were like, oh, I choose other, then he would be like, other, way up, way out, inspirational, metaphysical, dark, Christmas, driving. See, I know them that well. I think he has rehearsed these things so well that he could just pull them out at any time. And I guess it'll be good for him, I guess, if he's ever like in court, because he could probably keep his story pretty straight.
One night about 8 years ago, maybe something like that, I was at the Opera House that was letting out, and it was like 20th cabin line at the end of the block. And I started thinking, they're not going to need this many cabs, I shouldn't waste my time. So I started to pull out of the cab line, and just as I did, 3 people walked out of a door next to me, which I did not know at the time was the stage door. And they got in my cab. It was this gorgeous woman with this big thing of flowers that I could just barely see her face. A distinguished looking elderly gentleman with who was wearing a tuxedo, and a woman in her 30s who sat next to me. So we all started talking about the opera, blah blah blah, and I said, so how's the show tonight? And the woman next to me goes, well, our star really shone tonight. And I said, well, if she couldn't steal the show, at least she could steal the flowers. She goes, no, she's really the star. And I go, oh, cool. So I asked this woman, what do you do? And she goes, well, I'm a director at Goodman Theater. I go, what are you working on? And she goes, The Visit. I go, is that by Chekhov? And she goes, no, it's a new Kander and Ebb play. Now, John Kander and Fred Ebb wrote the songs for Chicago, Cabaret. They wrote the song New York, New York. Okay, so I said, Kander and Ebb, you know, those guys wrote a song which I could pinpoint as being the genesis of my showbiz career. And she goes, why don't you tell Mr. Kander he's sitting in your back seat? So I got to actually sing a song for John Kander. You know, like how many artists can say, you know, I have personally performed for the guy who wrote the song that like started my career. Who could say that, right? And then he introduced me to the one with the flowers. It turned out to be Renee Fleming, the opera diva. So one evening I got to sing for an origin story and diss a diva. I will always be thankful to my third wife for 3 things. All of which I greatly resisted initially. My daughter Aurora, watching the Talking Heads movie stop making sense and leaving me. 3 things which greatly enhanced my life and led to us having this conversation, right? And Talking Heads, just like, I was like so resistant. I go, no, I don't want to watch that movie. She goes, no, you'll like this. It's fun. And I go, no, man, I'm not into that punk stuff. And man, once halfway through Psycho Killer, I'm like, wow, this is great. And halfway through the second song, I'm just like, laughing so hard, I'm crying. I'm just like, this is so awesome, and I want to do that, you know. And then when she left me, I had time on my hands and started pursuing music, and as a singer, you know, doing open mics and stuff like that. And initially, I just did, you know, Chameleon World in its early days was almost a Talking Heads tribute. Yeah, we tried to sound, it was called Chameleon World because we tried to sound exactly like whoever we were covering. And since half of the songs we were covering were Talking Heads, we sounded exactly like Talking Heads. We sounded exactly like B-52s, or we sounded exactly like The Doors, or we sounded exactly like The Turtles. And then, or Thomas Dolby, Danny Elfman's band, Oingo Boingo. And, but mostly Talking Heads. And I sounded so much like David Byrne at the time that when Talking Heads broke up, I tried to get an audition to replace him. Because I figure I know his songs, I can sound just like him, or close enough, right? So I got as far in the process as my lawyer on the phone with their assistant manager. My lawyer, who was actually at the time my girlfriend, who was a banking lawyer, but they didn't have to know that. But she's on the phone with the assistant manager, who tells her, Jerry, Chris, and Tina aren't really sure what direction they want to go with a singer, but we all agree Ray sounds way too much like David for anybody to be comfortable with. Which I took as a compliment, because, you know, the whole idea was like, hey, what have I got to lose, right? But it occurred to me, thinking about it over the years, that I did have a lot to lose at that moment. Because if I'd have gotten that gig, I might have done an album or something like that with them. I might have done a tour or two, right? But I'm the singing cab driver. It's my own self-created thing, right? I have no doubt that someday there will be singing cab driver movies and TV shows and lunchboxes and T-shirts. I have no doubt at that at all, that that'll eventually happen. Hopefully while I'm still alive to play myself, you know. But if I'd have gotten that gig, I would still be known to a lot of people as the asshole who tried to fit into David Byrne's big suit. I'd rather be the singing cab driver. A slippery slope, so there's no turning back. Down in that valley, a garden of Eden, but you're run down by wolves, end up getting eaten. Oh, oh, road to the right is a treacherous climb. Ow! Danger is not far behind. Tired and hungry, no time to refresh. You just kill the wolves and dine on their flesh. Eat the wolves!
I'm from a little two towns called Riverdale and Dalton, which are directly south of downtown Chicago. They're the first right over the border, and I grew up back at a time when there was a lot of prairies. I spent a good chunk of my childhood probably nowhere within a half a mile of the nearest adult. You know, we had a lot of forests and fields to play around with. We just had to come home for supper and lunch. And that's the kind of world I grew up in. And I went to Queen of Apostles School, Catholic school, and Leo High School, a private Catholic school. But yeah, my dad was worked for a phone company. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, so you know, as was like a 50s, 60s kind of thing. I was always, you know, acting up and trying to get, you know, get attention. I was also, you know, I liked to sing back then. I would sing like show tunes and stuff like that for class because, I guess because I wasn't embarrassed. I guess that's what kind of, you know, separated me from the rest of the crowd. Well, I liked my parents. I mean, my dad was, you know, middle, what do you call it, you know, blue collar work, you worked for a home company, but he was home almost every night. My mom was home all day. I would get in all kinds of trouble at school or in the neighborhood, and my dad was usually the enforcer, so I'd have to go to your room and wait for your dad to come home. And as soon as he'd like to come home, pretty much just be resigned, gonna have to give me a good strapping at least a couple times a week. My dad was a very patient man with all of us, but especially with my mom. My mom was a little nuts, and as she grew older, she got I'd say pretty wacky, wacky in that we were very adversarial, and especially when she was going through menopause at the time, and I was a teenager. So this is like, the crossing of the worst times of both of our lives, probably. Here's the thing with my mom. I'm the oldest of 6, and she also lost a baby. So I'm the oldest of 7 pregnancies, you know what I mean? And my sister was born like maybe a year and a half after me. So I mean, already I'm like, I'm getting shoved aside for the babies. And there's more and more babies, and I maybe I don't know. Perhaps I kind of resented, being kind of shunned aside for more and more babies as I grew up. At least when I was real little. After I don't know, about the time I was a teenager, she was getting like maybe now you call it bipolar or something. She would get like really like how should I put it, violent and antagonistic. There were times when I'd have fight her off with a chair because she was coming at me with a knife. It was literally that kind of get down to it kind of thing. And I wasn't really into like getting into a fist fight with my mom. It never came to that, but it was literally things like me holding her off with a broom, or she beating me with the broom that she has. And by that time in my life, I'm like, I'm too old for this shit kind of stuff.
To grow up with having parents who are entertainers, is probably different than most other occupations that your parents could have, because when you're a kid, you're used to getting a lot of attention. Kids are supposed to get a lot of attention. They're very selfish people, and so are entertainers. So it's kind of like children raising children in some ways, at least emotionally. It also is fun, and you have something to brag about, like, oh, my dad was on TV, and that's cool. But there's also an aspect of, maybe feeling like they're always on, and that they're always telling stories, or everything's rehearsed and practiced, and you don't really feel like you're making this true connection with them always, just like two humans. It's sort of like you're being raised by a movie that's playing or something. Well, Chameleon World has gone through many lineup changes. I think that really creative people who have a very strong vision can be hard to work with. Of the people that he's been in a band with for the last 20-something years, there's just whatever, lineup there is right now, and then those people will kind of go away, and then there will be a new lineup of different people. So, I do think that there is some evidence that he might be pretty hard to work with. And possibly that's because he is the star, and he seems to have a difficult time understanding sometimes that not everyone else can dedicate like their full-time lives to his mission.
Here's my ticket. Where is the rocket to take me to the moon? Mom and Dad put it in my pajama pocket in 1962. Every night as a kid, he would tuck me in bed, sing me his little tune. Maybe someday soon you will go to the moon. So Ray and I met like a lot of people did. I got in his cab, and it was actually kind of interesting because I was coming out of work one day downtown, and my coworker and I had both hailed cabs at the exact same time. Like she lived about 4 blocks north of me, so we were like, oh, whose cab are we gonna get in? And so we ended up getting in Ray's. And his cab number was my parents' address, so they're like these little cosmic things. And he sang to us, and it was great. It was amazing. And she was the one who actually kind of made the contact. And he dropped her off, and when he dropped her off, he used to live in her apartment, like her exact unit. It was really crazy. I mean, it was like the weirdest thing. So, but yeah, we just started meeting, and I had this like awful basement apartment. He doesn't read or write music, and so I would be kind of writing the stuff down for him, but then also kind of building my arranging chops at the same time. So that was kind of the beginning of the partnership. This was something he gave this packet to a bunch of the people in the band. The Chameleon World Admin Scale of Importances. It was directly out of Scientology, but he kind of was very direct about stating, well, these are my goals and these are my purposes, and you state yours, and then we, it was a very like rigid sort of thing, and he kind of pulled it out at a time when he felt like maybe people in the band weren't taking it seriously enough, but yeah, he talks about ethics and sexual relationships between members of the band, and like things that, it's good, in a way, but just sort of the way he went about it was like bizarre. He gave me this book. Actually, he bought copies of this for the entire band. Vandalism. It's an awful book, but he was trying to keep things together. So, you gotta give him credit for that. He is eccentric, but he, I think the times that are the most interesting with him, when we really would have some interesting discussions, would be when he wasn't, like, really trying to grab the center of attention. I don't know, like, if he has a lot of close family connections. Like, I know, when he, like, his mom passed away a couple years ago, and it wasn't, like, for me it would be, like, devastating, but he wasn't, that wasn't as much a part of his world. His connections were these chance encounters with all the people that he meets on the street, and that was, like, really what drove him. I think part of it comes from being involved in the Scientology, and he started that back in like the 70s probably. There was, cases when people would see our shows, and just because of the way we would be like dressed, because we'd all be, dressing flashy and everything, and they would remember things from our show that didn't actually happen. So they'd come back and be like, oh yeah, that was that great show with all those lights and stuff, and like, no, we didn't have that. It was just, So we knew that we were doing something special. There would be times when he would do things that kind of unintentionally would sabotage the band, and we had to kind of have a couple of meetings with him to just say like, hey, this is how that came across, because he would be in his world and he'd be performing, but then I guess ultimately that's where I wanted a little bit more, was that the connection with our audience seemed to be not always there. I mean, certainly, like, getting involved with the Church of Scientology, it moved him in a direction and a sort of mindset that at times it was good, because he would be really focused on the project. In fact, that was like his only focus, and so he was very focused. But I think when it came to his ability to like read people or like understand other people's agendas, a lot of times it just he didn't quite get it. The personality became a little bit of a barrier, but it was, at the same time, it was an asset, because he was that front man kind of personality, and he was also just the creative impetus of the band. I mean, he came up with this really crazy and amazing music that nobody was doing anything like that, and then people would ask you to describe it, and it's like, you really couldn't. There wasn't anything like it.
I was the kind of driving dynamism of the band and of the project and of the partnership. And when for a while Paul was when we met, he was employed. He worked at some title search thing, and then in the course of a year or two later, he got laid off, and then so he was unemployed. And I think he was on unemployment for a couple of years, which was awesome because he needed all the time in the world. And then he got a girlfriend and a job around the same time, right? Now, a lot of people have plenty of time and attention span for one thing, maybe two things, but three things is kind of stretching it, right? And of those three things, I think Ray St. Ray is going to go. But I think in Paul's case, and in the case of a couple other ex-partners, music partners, when you have a girlfriend or a wife, she's kind of a, not always, but quite often she's kind of a mirror of what you want. If you got some doubts, they're going, oh yeah, you're right, Oh, well, maybe, if it's that much trouble, you should just like get rid of it, or move on, or, whatever kind of complaint you have about the thing, they're going, yeah, they don't pay enough attention to you. You're better than that. You should move on. You could have your own band, you know what I mean? And, that may or may not be true, but that's kind of what girlfriends will, and wives will tell you, because that's why they're there, and if they don't say stuff like that, they might not be around very long for most guys, right?
I met him through our church, the Church of Scientology. And he was an artist, and I was aspiring to be an artist, and he was just an interesting guy, a singer, and funny, and joking around, and seemed really intelligent, and a good-looking guy. And we just hit it off, and that's how I met him. Our wedding day was interesting. We had all of our friends there, and I think my whole family really wasn't sure what was going to happen with this relationship. So it was, how do I describe it? Well, first of all, I was pregnant with our daughter. It was not the reason that we got married. Our wedding invitations were already out when I found out that I was pregnant, but I was pregnant, so that added a bit of fun to my physical well-being at the time. But it was just a lot of our great friends there, I think, hoping that we would make it, not quite sure if we would or not. But I remember walking down the aisle thinking, am I doing the right thing here? Just because, I could see that Ray really needed to be like a super duper free spirit and kind of do his own thing, and he certainly wasn't going to be the traditional dad kind of guy. His parents, you know how you send back that card, how many will be attending? Well, his parents sent back a card, how many will be attending, and they wrote 0, but they didn't just write 0, they wrote like bold, like 1 billion times over, 0 will be attending, I thought, okay. And, I found out the reason why was because they thought he was a dirty fornicator, and how could he be getting married again when he was already married before and already had a child, and they would not be tolerating this. And I thought, wow, okay. So they weren't there, and the truth is that throughout our entire relationship, I never actually ever met his parents. But that didn't matter then. I was young, I was in love, but I also had that rational side of me going, what the fuck am I doing? Well, my involvement with Ray and Scientology, that was the whole involvement in the beginning. And he was involved before I was. He was involved years before the two of us got together, and he had actually gone up the levels to a pretty high level into the, the spiritual levels of Scientology. So yeah, he had made it up onto what they call the OT levels. So, and that means operating Thetan or operating spirit. It's all about the spiritual awareness that you can achieve in Scientology, and he was pretty far up there. He was working for the Celebrity Center, which was a branch of the Church of Scientology that catered to celebrity type people in the industry. At the time, Scientology was so all-encompassing in our lives, and all that mattered is how we were applying that technology to our lives in present time, that I never really delved into his past that much. He shared some things with me that I remember him telling me that his mom chased him around the kitchen with a knife, or like put his hand on the stove, like as some sort of punishment, like to burn his hand really fast or something. Like it was like really weird. But I never verified this with the rest of his family, and I actually have never even really talked with or spent much time with any of his family. Nobody actually cared to really find out or to know about me, truthfully. I think that we were never really meant to be with each other in the first place, even though when we both got together it was something that we both needed, but really both of us were too immature. We just weren't responsible enough. We were young, and I just think that we really didn't have all the right stuff, and neither one of us knew ourselves enough to then put all that together and both be like two whole people together making this relationship work. And also there were definitely divergent goals. He had the goal of being an entertainer and a writer, and of which he's very good at.
Hell, I've written novels that wives haven't even read. I wrote it while I was with them, and they still never got around to reading them,
I know he was writing this really awesome story, and I was reading it, and I would be sneaking reading this amazing story, and I was thinking to myself, shit, he's a really good writer. I can't even believe this. I don't know anything about the guy really, and I'm married to him, but he's like a really good writer. And then I find out like he lost like this entire story, blew out of his car, and he didn't have any backup copies. And at this time he's like writing it on like this typewriter at the time. We didn't have word processors and all that stuff, and the whole thing blew outside of his car. I got divorced from him, and he immediately started another relationship with a pretty accomplished musician in the Chicago area. They had 4 albums out, blah, blah, blah. And then Ray all of a sudden wants to be doing this musical stuff, and I personally felt like it was kind of a little bit of a dig or something, I mean, we're actually friends now, even though he's probably not supposed to talk to me. Because I'm not in the Church of Scientology anymore. And I've been labeled and declared a suppressive person in the Church of Scientology, so he's really not supposed to have anything to do with me.
I think Cindy, back then at least, she seemed to have this uncanny ability to get whatever she wanted from at least men. But she was very, you want to get married? Okay, let's get married. Oh, you want to be a singer? Okay, let's get you some voice lessons. Put it on my credit card. You need new clothes. Let's put them on my credit card. You need a better microphone. Let's get you a good one. Put it on my credit card. I had great credit when I met her because Susie, my previous wife, was like real into that, building up the credit rating and, and all that kind of stuff, right? So I had great credit rating when I met her. We were together for less than 2 years, which at least maybe a year that I was married. And I racked up 28 G's in debt, credit card debt, help on her singing career. I've never heard her sing in public but once in my life. She was out of town for a long period of time, and when she came back, I said I had to leave the Celebrity Center and just get a job so I could try and pay some of these bills. And we kept having these conversations about look, you got to leave the Celebrity Center too. You got to get a job. We got to pay these bills. They're really out of hand. And she goes, no, I'm going to help you with that. I'm going to help you with that. And then the next week she's like, I want a divorce. I go, why? She goes, you don't get it. I go, what do you mean I don't get it? You don't get me. And I go, what do you mean I don't get you? I had no idea what she was talking about, And what she finally admitted, what she felt, was that she's a musician and only another musician can understand her soul. Which to me as an artist is it's bullshit. I'm an artist. Artists understand artists. I understand, what you might be going through. But it was no, you don't get it. Only another musician could understand it. And she moves out, meets a guy named Perry who had been in some kind of almost famous type band back in the 70s. And she hooks up with him. They move in together. They get married. Thus, closing the door in the hopes of reconciliation. I was crestfallen. It was the lowest point of my life, seriously. Because I really thought she was the one. I thought, she's an artist, she gets me, I get her, But then, funny thing how things work out, because she left me with an interest in music I didn't have. And when she left, I hadn't thought about pursuing music, but I did have time on my hands to start hanging out with friends who were holding an open mic night, and I would just watch them rehearse and stuff like that. And I thought I could do this. So that was the birth of my music career. So she left me with. I'll always be thankful to her for 3 things: my daughter Aurora, turning me out of the music of Talking Heads, and leaving me. 3 things which I all greatly resisted initially, but turned out to be the best things that ever happened in my life, because that's how I became the singing cab driver. She just says she wants a divorce. I don't know why, right? The church has actually procedures for that. Most places in life don't, but Church of Scientology actually has a policy of what you're supposed to do when somebody just wants to suddenly leave like that for no reason.
And that is, especially for couples therapy, you get them both on the e-meter and you ask them questions like, what doesn't Ray know about you? Or is there something, Cindy doesn't know about you? And you watch the e-meter and the auditor can get them to, it's called pulling withholds, People have secrets, so they don't say anything, right? But to the extent that they got something they're holding back, they're now slightly not in totally communication with the whole thing. So that extent, because you feel uncomfortable and you don't want to think about all those transgressions because they were just little things, but they all kind of started stacking up. But you don't want to think about that, the time you cheated on your husband, or the time didn't bring back the change from the $20 bill on, because you spent it on, something you wanted. Little things like that add up. Next thing you know, and you're uncomfortable around the person or group of people, and now you start finding fault with them because you're uncomfortable with them. Like, oh, he snapped at me. Oh, she doesn't, and suddenly she doesn't like my sex, and then, you find more and more fault with them, and that gives you more and more reason not to be there. And then finally you just reach a point and go, yeah, I got to get out of here. This sucks. This place sucks. It's the same people. They didn't change. You did. Your perception of them changed. The whole world does that. If I gave her a hard time, then I was like kind of almost in danger of being declared a suppressive person. Like I'm trying to stop the church from doing something because I'm messing with, with an executive who's doing a job for the church. And, but the church isn't like applying their own technology to the situation. And I'm out here looking like the bad guy on this. I mean, I actually had, people from the church calling me up and telling me what an asshole I was for, and a suppressive person I was for, giving Cindy any kind of grief about this divorce. And I'm like, I felt like my whole church was attacking me and protecting her, but not applying the technology that they have for this situation. At that point, I realized, like, maybe all this is cracked up to be. I should go off on my own. And I became the singing cab driver, so all is well. Rainy night, deserted street, lit by neon signs, pavement hard beneath my feet, so tired I could cry. I felt confused and lost at night, alone and no one cared. But my heart quickened at the sight of a cab from out of nowhere. Taxi, take me to another world. Taxi, where there's no need for tears. Taxi, I will tip you very well. Taxi, just get me out of here.
How did I get involved in Scientology?
Yeah, and when?
Well, I've always been looking for something like that. I'm a thinker. I'm a logical person, and although I dabbled in, Catholicism and mysticism and transactional analysis and stuff like that. One day I was down in Champaign-Urbana in 1974. This would be spring of 1974, and just down there for the day to get my car tuned up. And I was walking around the campus, and this cute girl came up to me and said, "Hey, you ever hear of Dianetics or Scientology?" And my first reaction was like, Jesus, people, Hare Krishnas, get away from me, But she seemed to actually be talking to me, not at me. And she gave me a ticket to an introduction, a lecture, and said, yeah, it's at 7 o'clock. Why don't you come over to the mission? And I go, yeah, I think I'll take a pass. She goes, well, here, keep it for a bookmark. So I kept it. So I read the book, and it seemed kind of interesting, but it was, I kind of came to the conclusion, like, if this guy can do like 10% of what he claims he can do, it's still the best thing I've ever heard of. So I signed up for the introductory course. In those days was the communication course, and I started the next morning, and then I went back to Chicago and came back a week or two later and finished it like over a weekend. So I got more and more involved, and I ended up working for the organization, leaving the church, not leaving the church, but leaving like working for them, and then decide changing my mind and coming back, and I pretty much spent almost like 7 years of my adult life actively working in the church organization. Interestingly enough, quite often teaching those communication courses.
Are you still involved with the church?
No, I just kind of feel that since Hubbard died and the current chairman of the board, pretty much has run the church since then, it's become more and more authoritarian and fundamentalist in its organizational thing, which totally doesn't appeal to me at all.
Have you applied anything from Scientology to your career?
Yeah, plenty. In a couple of months, it'll be 25 years I've been the singing cab driver. And so it's a quarter of a century I've been doing the same thing pretty much almost every day, writing songs, singing them to people, and making their day, which is pretty much what the singing cab driver exists for, right? I didn't think I'd be doing it this long. I thought I'd be a rock star by now. But one of the things I got out of Scientology was kind of a Zen ability to just, be in the moment, like on a moment-to-moment basis for long periods of time. Kind of a thing I used to like to get from drugs, but I always thought it would be awesome if I could get this, ability and not be on drugs. So that's a major thing I got out of Scientology, which I kind of applied to my life. So rather than pursuing money and the success of money that most people, or the success of fame, it was just the success of being able to do something you like, and being able to do something you like, and being able to do something you like on a moment-to-moment basis. But every once in a while, I do have, doubt creeps in, especially when, I'm like scrambling for the rent. And, at 25 years, I'm kind of questioning whether I should continue doing it or pursue something else. But I do have quite a repertoire built, and something should be done with this. And I think, I like to think there's people out there want to hear what I got.
His career is interesting. What he does, as the singing cab driver is really interesting. But it's also like he's got his sort of like home life really sewn up. Like he eats all the good food that he wants to. Like he makes exactly enough money to eat all the good food that he wants to and live in the neighborhood that he wants to, in an apartment that he wants to, and watch the 8 million shows and movies that he wants to watch. And that's what he does. He does exactly what he wants to do. He rarely does anything that he doesn't want to do, which is kind of amazing. And I think that most people are probably not doing what they want to do 90% of the time. And he's doing what he wants to do 100% of the time.
I mean, we have a beautiful daughter together, and he stayed in her life. When I was younger, my dad just took off. So to me, I was always grateful that Ray stuck around, and he, even though he wasn't necessarily super involved in her life, he was always there though, and he would, he was a dad.
I have so many people who are just like totally dig what I'm doing and tell me to keep doing it, and there are people who don't get it, and that's all right. They're not in my club. Like 1 out of 20 people doesn't want to hear a song, and 2 or 3 out of the 19 say yeah, okay, but they don't really know how to deal with it, and that's okay. They're not my target audience. It's a waste of my time to try to entertain assholes, drunks, and those who don't know how to have a good time. I only sing for people I like, which is almost everyone I meet, and they almost always get it. Well, I don't let people request me because I'm not a cab driver. I'm in the business of creating the legend of the singing cab driver for me to cash in on. If people know about me,
they're already in the club. I'm in the business of finding people who don't know about me. Plus, if I started taking requests, I would very quickly become the chauffeur to the same group of people, which sounds suspiciously like a job.
Before I was the singing cab driver, I've been a newsboy, a nurse's aide, a bicycle repairman, a meat packer, army paratrooper, railroad switchman, graphic designer, adult education instructor, retail sales clerk, heating contractor, office manager, sign painter. I was personal secretary to a couple of guys who buy and sell Stradivarius violins. I was the art director of a 100-page magazine and a large suburban newspaper, and for years I was a door-to-door salesman. I have never been a cowboy, detective, astronaut, movie star, but I'm working on it. And that's what the singing cab driver is. And I've always wanted to live life as an artist, and that's what the singing cab driver is. It's my boyhood dream come true.
Well, if I couldn't sing, I wouldn't drive a cab. That's, quite frankly, if there was some kind of weird ordinance or weird situation that I couldn't sing like I do, then what's the point, really? No, I mean, my raison d'etre is as a singing cab driver is to make people's day, and include them in my dream. And if I can get them where they're going in one piece right side up, all the better, but that's not high on my agenda.
Taxi, take me to another world. Taxi, where there's no need for tears.